Good afternoon, members and guests who are here this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. In our first hour today, Minister Carr has kindly agreed to join us and make some presentations and answer some questions. So, Minister Carr, thank you for joining us. And before I turn the floor over to you, I would just like to formally welcome our new member to our committee, Mary Ng. So, Mary, thank you for joining us.
Much.
And I'd also like to thank Michael McLeod, who's been on the committee since we started in November of 2015 for his contribution. So, no further ado, Minister Carr, thank you again for coming, and I will turn the floor over to you, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and bon après-midi tout le monde, and also
Good afternoon, everyone.
I can only imagine how exciting the day was for you yesterday. We all came in at once, but you came in one at a time. Memories to be cherished, no doubt. Well, colleagues, a lot has happened in the 5 months since I was last here. We have seen some commodity prices rise, then fall, and then rise again. Some have momentum, others, unfortunately, only have moments. This uncertainty in the natural resource sectors is a reminder of the times we live in, one marked by unprecedented change and ongoing challenges. From new U.S. countervailing duties on our softwood lumber to consolidation in the oil patch. Now, all of this is taking place amid a global transition to the lower carbon economy that has become inevitable in every part of the world. Par exemple, la Chine est l'une des plus grandes.
Take China, one of the largest greenhouse gas emitters in the world. It's making generational changes to how it uses energy, including a commitment to cut its greenhouse gas emissions by 18% and cap its coal emissions by 2020. Next year, it is putting a price on carbon. Or consider Saudi Arabia, the quintessential oil-producing country. It is aiming to build enough solar capacity over the next 15 years to supply about 20% of its electricity.
Why all of these changes? It's not just because environmental responsibility is essential to economic development or because meaningful Indigenous engagement is a constitutional obligation, or because public confidence is critical to resource development in the 21st century, although those are all very good reasons and top of mind for our government. But there's an even more fundamental reason. Ensuring Canada is a global leader in the clean economy is our surest path to sustainable growth, good middle-class jobs, and shared prosperity for generations to come. This is the lens through which the main estimates were viewed and drafted. I have Deputy Minister Christine Tremblay and our Chief Financial Officer Sherry Crosby with me to help us navigate our way through the numbers. But I would like to start with a brief overview of how these main estimates fit within our government's priorities. The first key point to make is that the main estimates are a snapshot in time, in this case from February, but departmental budgets are not static. They evolve, which is why we have supplementary estimates throughout each fiscal year. Second, our main estimates often feature wide variations from year to year, reflecting everything from volatile commodity prices to new priorities and sunsetting programs. And this year's main estimates, Mr. Chair, are no different. For example, the biggest decrease is a forecasted $335 million drop under the statutory Atlantic Offshore Accord Act due to lower resource prices and production levels anticipated on the East Coast. It's a steep drop, to be sure, but the annual fluctuation has little direct bearing on Natural Resources Canada's funding. We are merely the conduit through which these payments flow to the offshore boards and the provinces. Likewise, there's a $46.2 million decrease showing for Sustainable Development Technology Canada, but it doesn't mean we've cut its funding. It merely reflects our decision to transfer this important program for clean tech companies to a different department. So, SDTC disappears from our radar and reappears at Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. I highlight these two items because when they are removed from the mix of net increases and decreases, a very different picture of NRCan emerges. Suddenly, a $250 million funding decrease from last year's main estimates gives way to an $82 million overall increase in our programming and operating budget. That means more money to help ensure Canada's natural resources sector are globally competitive, more money to promote environmental stewardship, more money to encourage consumers to make smarter, more environmentally sound purchases, more money to better manage our lands and resources, and to provide Canadians with greater protections. That's the snapshot before you today, a storyline built on our first budget, Budget 2016, which featured a significant down payment on the clean economy. You can see it with the first installments to modernize the department's research facilities, advance clean energy technologies, enhance environmental performance in the oil and gas industry, and create a national network of recharging and refueling stations for tomorrow's clean vehicles. Budget 2017 takes those investments and runs with them. For example, it provides an additional $200 million over 4 years to support clean technology research and innovation in Canada's natural resource sectors, including energy, forestry, and mining. Budget 2017 also recognizes the vital role of forestry in addressing climate change, investing close to $40 million to increase the use of new low-carbon wood technologies in infrastructure projects. We're also providing another $43 million this year to help the forest sector develop innovative wood products and expand into new markets. That's particularly timely in the wake of the new countervailing duties the United States announced last week on Canadian softwood lumber. I am sure members will have questions when they have a chance to ask them. I will just add here that our government plans to use every tool at its disposal to fight these punitive duties and defend the interests of Canada's softwood lumber industry, its workers, and their local communities. Budget 2017 also extends the 15% mineral exploration tax credit for an additional year to ensure that the mining sector continues to make its vital contribution to the Canadian economy. This tax credit helps junior mineral exploration companies raise capital to finance early exploration that can lead to new discoveries, future mines, and more jobs. Its extension recognizes that recent commodity market improvements are still tenuous and that financing remains challenging. Budget 2017 also proposes a one-time payment of $30 million to support Alberta's efforts to stimulate economic activity and employment in its resource sector. And there is another $17.4 million over the next 3 years to support the National Energy Board's effort to enhance pipeline safety. All of these investments, Mr. Chairman, will drive innovation and help us fulfill our commitments in the Pan-Canadian framework to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, spur innovation, adapt to climate change, and create good jobs across the country. Budget 2017 also includes $220 million to reduce the reliance on diesel fuel in rural and remote communities, $100 million for next-generation smart grid storage and clean electricity technology, $120 million for electric vehicles and those powered by natural gas and hydrogen vehicles, $182 million for new building codes to retrofit existing buildings and construct new net-zero energy buildings across Canada, and $87 million for Indigenous advisory and monitoring committees for the Trans Mountain expansion and the Line 3 replacement pipelines. Finally, more broadly, and perhaps most importantly, Budget 2017 identifies 6 key innovative industries where Canada can lead globally and create good jobs for Canadians. And 2 of them fall within Natural Resources Canada's purview: clean technology and clean resources. Our main estimates are an important piece in all of this. They are part of our government's plan to strengthen the heart of Canada's economy, the middle class, by making strategic investments that will produce sustainable growth, a cleaner environment, and thriving communities. J'espère que vous
I'm hoping you will support our efforts today by approving the main estimates. And I would welcome any questions you may have.
today by approving the main estimates, and I would welcome any questions you may have. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Minister, thank you very much. I'm going to turn the floor to questions. I should have also acknowledged and thanked Mr. McKay and Mr. Doherty for being here today as well. Mr. Harvey, you are first up.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank the Minister for being here with us today. I know he's got a busy schedule. We appreciate your time. Coming from an area in New Brunswick that's highly dependent on softwood lumber, and having grown up in a community where we survived the last softwood lumber crisis, and I saw the closure of two large sawmills in my area, which the community's never really recovered from. I guess most of my questions will be centered around softwood lumber, and I was wondering, there's been the establishment of the Softwood Lumber Task Force, and I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on the makeup and scope of the task force and some of the deliverable objectives that you could see that task force accomplishing.
Thank you. There is the political task force, which is made up of ministers responsible for forestry from all of the provinces and chaired by Canada's Minister of Natural Resources, but supported by a committee of deputy ministers and of assistant deputy ministers who have been working for months anticipating the countervailing duties that were announced 11 days ago. We are looking to establish a pan-Canadian response. We all know that there are regional differences in the softwood lumber sector across the country, but we also believe that there is much in common. We have met face-to-face as recently as a few weeks ago. We'll meet again face-to-face within the next number of weeks, now that we have some idea of the quantum of the countervail, but not all, I should remind members, because the anti-dumping duties will not be known to us until June, and the final determination of the Department of Commerce won't be known to us until the end of the year. But meanwhile, we are working collaboratively, which is a very important thing for us to be able to say at this juncture of the file, with our provincial counterparts, looking at long-term sustainability within the sector. That means market diversification. It means within the industry itself taking advantage of, for example, taking forest waste and converting it into clean fuel. It has to do with looking at tall building construction. I know that my colleague cares about that because the technology, I believe, was developed in Penticton, his home community. And I hope that he has a question about that because I can be proud along with him for cutting the ribbon on an 18-story building at the University of British Columbia. So this is the future. Meanwhile, there will be job losses. And we know that this is lumber 5, and this is lumber 5 only since 1982. I'm not going to take up your time, but the first major lumber dispute was in 1839 when Maine and New Brunswick had a go at it. And they were able to stop short of fisticuffs when they were able to settle it peacefully through negotiation, which I'm sure we will be able to do, which is the only way that we can, in the long term, come to terms with this repeating irritant that is as a result of the United States repeatedly imposing punitive and, we believe, unfair tariffs against the Canadian industry.
Yeah, one thing I will say is I think I'm very proud of the working relationship that New Brunswick has with the state of Maine. Maybe it goes all the way back to then, but we're very close in proximity and we're very close in size and scale of our industry, and I think it's reflective of our working relationship back and forth. Within NRCan specifically, like how do you see NRCan's role in helping softwood lumber producers and workers in the coming weeks and months as this softwood lumber issue really starts to hit home and come to roost, so to speak, within the small rural communities across the country?
Yeah, we have a variety of instruments that are available to us. In the immediate term, the most important value is to protect workers who will be affected by layoffs. We don't know how many there will be. We'll have a better idea after the duties in June are announced. We believe that there are adjustments that can be made to federal programs that will cushion the impact for workers. We also know that producers will have very difficult decisions to make. We think there are programs that can be made available and are already available to those producers. So we believe that with the cooperation and collaboration of our provincial counterparts, we will look at ways that we can work together to do as much as we reasonably can do under the circumstances to protect those who will lose their jobs, to help companies cope with this very difficult moment for their bottom line, and also importantly to communities who are affected, because those of you who represent rural ridings know how important the forestry sector is, yes, for the workers, yes, for the companies, but for the communities themselves. So we will be working together with the provinces on each one of those fronts.
Yeah, like I know Mr. Doherty and I think we probably share a similar community demographics, and I know for myself, having grown up within that sector, it's a lot of the problem around softwood lumber and mills in particular is that they're often in remote rural locations, and so there's an adaptability issue that comes with the workforce that's already there. So you've got a workforce that's highly skilled, but they're not easily adaptable to another industry.
Right.
And so how can we help those workers? Coming from that community, I know that the answer can't always be, well, we're going to help you transition into something else. We need to come up with real, tangible solutions of how we can help those people retain some of the industry that they've known, whether it's through market development or increased access to other markets. Do you see that as a viable possibility that we're going to be able to work with other government departments to work on market development or creating access?
Yes, I do. Minister Champagne has just come back from China with a delegation from the industry. I will be also taking a delegation of industry to China in early June, and the reports back are that they are keenly interested in the Canadian product. And if you look at the growth in the Chinese market over the last decade or so, it's been significant. At the same time, Parliamentary Secretary was in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, and the answer was exactly the same in Southeast Asia as it was in China, to the interest in doing more business with Canada. We will develop this. It will not happen overnight. The trend line is good and encouraging, as we believe it can be also in South America. 99% of Quebec's exports in softwood lumber go to the United States. 99% of Canada's exports in oil and gas go to the United States. It's very important for the future development of our natural resources that we expand these export markets. Yeah. And there's no better example than that in the forestry sector.
Thank you, Minister. We're going to have to move on. Mr. Barlow, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. And, Mister, thank you very much for taking time to be here. And I'm going to go off softwood lumber to a different issue, but I want to talk about some of the things that you had in your presentation. You talked about more money to help Canada's natural resource sector to become globally competitive. You talked about the uncertainty in the industry. You talked about creating good jobs for the middle class. Well, I would argue that everything that you are doing, and especially everything in this budget, is accomplishing exactly the opposite. It's very timely that you're here today, as yesterday ConocoPhillips announced another 300 people being laid off, the majority of those in Calgary. ConocoPhillips joins Royal Dutch Shell, Marathon Oil, Total, Statoil, who have all left Alberta, have all left Canada. That's $80 billion in capital that have already left my home province. The vacancy rate in downtown Calgary is well over 30%, probably higher than that if you actually went into downtown and took a look. More than 125,000 Albertans out of work, out of the energy sector. During the constituency break, I had the opportunity to meet with a group of unemployed engineers, geologists, geophysicists, they have actually started a group called the Calgary and Regional Unemployed Energy Professionals Association. They've started a group of them. There's more than 100 members. And these are people who have been unemployed for not just months, but up to close to 2 years in some of them. Tears, have no idea where to go. And you talk about the uncertainty in the industry that is causing a lot of these issues. Well, Mr. Minister, a lot of the uncertainty in the industry is what you have caused by making political decisions when it comes to projects like Northern Gateway, by adding uncertainty to the regulatory process and approval process. These companies and this international investment doesn't leave if there is a good environment for them to be successful. But when they don't see a clear pathway to approval or success, they are going to go where they're going to get a return on their investment, where they are welcome, where business is going to be. And I'm going to finish with a pretty easy question for you. But, you know, for us in Alberta, we want to see, does the federal government want an energy industry? Do you want an oil and gas industry or not? It's time to let us know. Is this something you do support or you don't support? Because we are getting very mixed messages. And you put in a carbon tax that was supposed to give us this elusive social license that we would be able to have projects like Trans Mountain, the Line 3 reversal. But you're going to have very possibly an NDP provincial government win an election in BC who has been quite open to the fact that they will block Trans Mountain pipeline from being built. So I don't see this social license. It just doesn't exist. This hasn't purchased us any leeway or support from a potentially new provincial government in BC. But what really concerned me with this budget was the eliminating of the Canadian exploration expense. So when Alberta and our oil and gas sector is hurting, you took an opportunity, rather than find a policy that was going to give that sector some assistance, or at least leave it alone. In my opinion, and the opinion of certainly my constituents in Alberta, is you took another opportunity to kick us while we're down. And that may seem harsh, Mr. Minister, but that is the fact, and that is how people in Alberta, especially in the energy sector, feel. And I took a look at Finance Canada's data this week just to see the impact that eliminating that exploration expense would be. And according to Finance Canada, from 2007 to 2012, approximately $1.4 billion per year in public equity for oil and gas, mining, and clean energy sectors was raised through the flow-through share program, including programs like the Canadian Exploration Expense, which is available to all companies eligible for expenses. And flow-through shares assist primarily junior exploration companies whose access to other sources of financing may be limited. This is a huge impact for Alberta. Tim McMillan, the president and CEO of the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, quoted, "I am disappointed. I think this sends a bad signal and further puts us at a disadvantage in terms of the capital we are trying to attract from global markets compared to the United States." And you talked about making us globally competitive. This makes us globally uncompetitive. This is our biggest, the United States is our biggest competitor for capital. This government is very concerned with the middle class, while our industry hires the middle class. So, Mr. Minister, did you do any consultation with industry before you made this decision to remove the Canadian exploration expense from the budget?
Well, those are a lot of questions.
No, it's just really one at the end.
Well, no, you wanted to ask a simple yes or no question about whether or not this government supports the energy sector.
Well, my question for you is, did you do any consultation with energy or with businesses involved in the industry before you removed this from the budget?
Let me, if I may, answer your questions in some kind of a sequence. Yes, the Government of Canada supports the energy sector in Alberta and right across the country. The evidence of that support is in the 15,000 jobs that will be created in the expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, in the 7,000 jobs that will be created through the Line 3 replacement project, the many thousands of jobs that will be created in other projects that have been announced and will be announced.
So are you saying, Mr. Minister, will you make sure those projects get built?
Well, I know that the government of Canada has approved these projects. These projects.
That's not
have
the question.
support.
Will you back them?
These projects have the support of the government of Alberta and the government of British Columbia. So there are 3 governments in the country that have approved these projects, and I would have every expectation that because of that they will be built.
If you have a provincial
Secondly-
government in BC that opposes it, will you stand to make sure it
Well,
gets
you know,
built?
you're a politician. You've been around a lot longer than I. Would you answer a hypothetical question about an election that hasn't been decided yet by the people of a province? I don't think so. So we will.
So you won't
judge-
answer the question.
Well, come on. We will judge.
It's a nation-building project. Will you back it?
One person at a time, please, if
We
you
will
let him answer the question.
We will judge the actions of whomever the British Columbians elect as their government. We have approved the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline project, and we will continue to support it. If there is a new government of British Columbia that has a different idea and wants to express a different idea, of course we'll talk to them about that. But you know what our
Thanks.
position is.
No, that was the answer I wanted. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Cannings?
Well, thank you, Minister, for being here today. I appreciate it. And I'm going to bring it back to the softwood lumber situation. And thanks for your call last week. And really, some of the first words you spoke, as you did today, was the impacts that are going to happen. You said there will be layoffs, there will be job losses. And so in the short term, you pointed out that there's existing programs that can help in some way in those matters. EI for the workers that lose their jobs, EDC, BDC loans for the companies that may require some sort of support. This is a very difficult situation, as other people have mentioned. I'm from British Columbia. Last time this happened, we lost 100 mills or something. I forget the exact number. We lost tens of thousands of jobs. It was, it really changed the face of a lot of communities. And so I think it calls for more direct measures from the government to help the situation across the country. We've seen Ontario and Quebec asking for loan guarantees from the federal government in the short term. And also during the last softwood lumber dispute, the Martin government provided funds, I think $20 million to the forest industry to offset their costs, legal costs stemming from the dispute that helped those companies in the short term. So in terms of that, what we can do today, because a lot of these small companies are going to be paying big retroactive payments very soon. I'm just wondering, are these loan guarantees something that your government is contemplating providing, and will you contemplate providing help for legal fees?
We're looking at any and all reasonable actions to help workers and to help producers. We also have a long historical record dating back to 1982 in the Common Era of what the impact of these countervailing duties and anti-dumping duties have done to communities. So we are able to anticipate. It's not the same situation now as it was 10 years ago. The economic situation is different. The American housing is not the same. The currency fluctuations are not identical. But we have enough background to know what we should expect will happen once the total quantum of the duties is known. And we will look at every reasonable opportunity, and not only in the short term, and I think you've named ways in which governments can help in the short term, but also in the transition over a decade or more. And we believe that because of the realities of climate change, that the forestry sector should become a very important part of a new natural resource economy for Canada, and where Canada can lead the world. So in the longer term, I am optimistic about how the industry will adapt, but we're going to have to make sure that in the short term, that governments, both across the country and in the government of Canada, and not only in my department, but in departments that have more direct impact on laid-off workers, government departments who have more impact on the capacity to use financial institutions to help companies now in the short term. I just want you to be assured that we are taking every effort to make sure that we can do whatever is reasonable in the circumstance, both now and looking at the next generation of forestry workers, to withstand these punitive countervails from the United States.
Okay, and moving on to the mid to long term, I'll give you your question about large wood buildings, but you talked about diversifying into Asia and Europe. I was at the COFI meetings in Vancouver last month, where there was actually considerable, it was quite the opposite feel about China, where analysts who had specialize in that market were kind of negative about the opportunities in the midterm, at least, of moving into China because of the Russia competition, the low ruble, things like that. But I don't want to go there. I'm just talking about this opportunity to really boost our domestic market and the market with the United States through the use of wood in large buildings. You mentioned the $40 million or so that you're providing in this year's budget. Unfortunately, that money won't be spent till next year, 2018-19. So I want to know why the delay, when we could be helping these companies now. I would like to know how much of that $40 million will be actually spent building buildings, to use our industry. And, I do have a private member's bill that I tabled just before the break, C-354, that asks the federal government to consider the use of wood in building large wood buildings to help the industry right now, as we have in British Columbia. So just those three questions.
Well, I think that's a very helpful and positive suggestion, and I welcome it. We think that tall wood construction is a fruitful possibility for the diversification of the industry and the transformation of the industry. And we know that Canada is one of very few countries who are actually leading in this technology, and we now have examples to show others that this actually works. And we think that not only does it have the advantage of diversifying products within the sector, but it's also a carbon sink. So it has climate change advantages as well. So yes, we are serious about this possibility. We are talking to the industry about it. We're talking to provincial counterparts, and we welcome your positive suggestions.
Okay. And
Right on the button,
okay.
Unfortunately. Thank you. Mr. Tan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to share my time with my colleague, Mr. Harvey. I sense that he may need more time to finish his questions. We have been meeting many witnesses on the clean technology file throughout this study, and we're currently undertaking. In your opinion, Minister, how will this clean technology create a more sustainable and environmentally sound resource sector? And what is the government doing to drive this progress? What are the opportunities or challenges?
Well, clean technology and innovation are really central to the government's program. And there will be significant investments across a number of different government departments to make that happen. And as a part of our mission to China in early to mid-June, we will be having serious conversations about this with the Chinese and with others internationally. So I think that innovation is an extremely important element of how we manage the transition from today's energy economy to tomorrow's. There would be agreement internationally that there is a trend away from fossil fuels. There'll be a disagreement among the analysts about how long that's going to take, but I don't think there's much disagreement that this is the trajectory that can't be denied. If you look at the oil sands themselves, we were in a position to develop them because of innovation. That resource sat in the ground a long time until the innovators figured out a way to get it out. And now we're seeing already that innovation is finding ways to take the resource out of the ground more sustainably, judging on the carbon footprint that it leaves behind. And in my conversations with other ministers from around the world, most recently at the G7 in Rome, that we are in an international marketplace and we're in an international competition for innovation and clean technology. And we should see this as an opportunity for Canada. We often talk, and we should have a mind on competitive pressures from the United States, but also we should understand that we are in a unique position to take advantage of our innovators and our entrepreneurs and our riches within the energy sector, both traditional and renewable, to place Canada at the forefront. And people will know around the table of the great work of COSIA, the Canadian Oil Sands Alliance, that puts their own intellectual property aside, and they work together as an industry to share technologies and best practices for the benefit of all. So I appreciate your isolating that as a very important part of the move towards the low-carbon energy future, and be assured that the Government of Canada understands the opportunities and is moving aggressively in concert and cooperation with the private sector to position Canada well, not only to look after our domestic situation, but also to become an international leader.
Thank you.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit too, and I'm actually just going to draw on some of the comments that you made in your opening statements. And I know within this committee, there's no argument really about it that I'm a feverish supporter of our oil and gas sector and a lot of the innovation that we've seen both on the Atlantic coast and on the West Coast as they've tried to adapt new technologies, as you said, to do it in a more environmentally safe and sustainable manner. And I recognize the innovation that we've seen there and the future innovation to come. And you're right, it's absolutely not a stagnant industry. It continues to evolve, and the innovation is what continues to drive it. But I'm also a big believer in recognizing patterns and shifts and changes. And, you pointed to China and Saudi Arabia in your opening statements, and the policy shift that we see within those countries towards their greenhouse gas emissions and their overall consumption of fossil fuels. And I just want you to elaborate a little bit on how you feel we can, heed that signal and use that to help propel us to be a leader in new technologies that are going to keep us in front of the pack as opposed to being a hanger-on or a straggler.
Well, ultimately, you have to not only rely on brain power and on the innovators, but you have to incent them. And you'll see in this budget that there are many policies that are directed to doing precisely that. We lead on about 30 of the 50 actions of the Pan-Canadian Framework on Clean Growth. So NRCan actually is among the lead departments in ensuring that the policies are in place that can maximize our potential. And on the phase-out over a very long time, I'm sure, of traditional sources of energy, we look at what the International Energy Agency says, for example. And the International Energy Agency says that it's not going to happen anytime soon. That growth for oil and gas is growing in the developing world, that middle classes that are becoming more and more able to consume are looking for sources of energy to satisfy that demand. So it makes sense in Canada, as one of the very few nations in the world who are actually exporters of energy, to look at satisfying this demand and then using the revenue that we will achieve from creating more opportunity for our producers and exporters to finance the transition to a lower carbon economy, including renewables, including funding electric vehicle charging stations, including many of the elements that you'll see in Budget 2017. Canada is better positioned than almost any country in the world, I would say, to satisfy this growing demand more sustainably, moving the product more safely than we have traditionally, while having a clear eye on future opportunities as we incent the private sector to work with us in a renewable resource energy economy.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm right on time. Mr. Doherty, to you for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the Minister, I've got a few comments. First, number one, Mr. Minister, Canada is already leading the way. Our forestry sector is already leading the way in technology and as well as environmental practices. And it's staggering for us to be hanging our hopes on China, as Canada's already been in China for over 10 years. And we need an answer now, not down the road. We know that agreements take a long period of time. It is shocking for me to sit here and hear that that there was much anticipation, that this government knew that the countervailing duties were coming. We all knew that that was coming, yet there was no plan. And no plan for the communities such as Mr. Harvey mentioned, as well as my communities, indeed the 650 communities that are forestry dependent right across our country. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to read a motion into record, if we can, please. Put forth a motion that the committee invite the designated provincial envoys who represent their respective provinces on the softwood lumber file and hear from them their priorities for a new softwood lumber agreement between Canada and the United States. That the committee, after these initial meetings, then invite the Minister of Natural Resources to present the government's plan on a new softwood lumber agreement.
You're eating into your time here, Mr. Doherty, but we didn't have notice of this motion today, and we are here discussing the estimates. So I don't think it's appropriate that this is something that the committee deals with today.
Mr. Minister, can you confirm whether or not there was ever a proposal for a new softwood lumber agreement put on the table by the U.S.?
I know of no such proposal. I know that the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada spoke about softwood lumber a number of times.
So,
I know
Mr. Minister, so
I have no knowledge. No, there was no agreement.
Okay.
So there was no agreement.
Are you saying Michael Froman, the former U.S. Trade Representative, misspoke?
I'm saying there was no agreement.
All right. Can you explain why you think the four largest producers were not hit with retroactive duties?
I can't explain the actions of the United States Department of Commerce. I can only respond to them in a way that's in the best interests of our producers, our communities, and our workers.
Did the Government of Canada ask for any exemptions at the negotiating table?
You're asking a question about a previous negotiation, and I can't answer that question.
Has the government done an economic impact analysis on the state of our forestry industry, and how many job losses are you expected?
We believe that there is a range, but it's very difficult to be precise because we don't yet know the quantum of the anti-dumping duties that will be leveled in June.
What is your?
So that would be a guess, and I don't think that's healthy.
Is the government pushing the U.S. Commerce Department to hold the duties, like was done in the previous SLA trade war?
I know that Minister Freeland is in frequent contact with Secretary Ross. They speak.
Is this
often.
your file or Minister Freeland?
Minister Freeland. But you know, I'm telling you something that should add value to the conversation. That she has this continuing conversation with him. Just so members of the committee understand, and I think it's important you do. It is Minister Freeland, as the minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade relations, to negotiate an agreement on softwood lumber. It is my job, as Canada's Minister of Natural Resources, to respond to any countervail to protect workers, communities, and producers.
Minister, are Canada's remanufacturers included in the small producers? Are they the remanufacturers?
What are they? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Canada's remanufacturers.
Remanufacturers?
Right.
I'll have to take. Anybody? Anybody? You flummoxed an entire department. We'll get back to you.
Well, Mr. Minister, they've been asking questions. They met with Global Affairs recently, and they're not receiving any answers on that. As a matter of fact, they're curtailing their shipments because they are not getting any answers either. They've been asking for over 18 months as well.
Yeah. I'm sorry, we'll look into it and get back to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, you're almost right on time. Thank you. Mr. Lemieux. Mr. Lemieux, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister. As you may have guessed, I would have a lot of questions to ask you regarding softwood lumber. However, Mr. Cannings and TJ have already asked them. Now, regarding the 2017-2018 budget, the government has extended by a year the tax credit for mining exploration, and that was one of our recommendations following our study on the mining sector. And in 2015, only over 200 companies have issued flow-through shares. How will this tax credit encourage mining exploration, and how will it encourage job creation in the sector?
Thank you for the question. I know that it's become an annual event at the Prospector and Developers Association of Canada meeting to announce this. I had the pleasure of announcing it this year to, I must tell you, an appreciative crowd. And they're appreciative for a good reason, because it's very important. And we know that this tax credit is doing an awful lot to enhance the capability of juniors to do the exploration that they needed. So we recognize that recent commodity market improvements are tenuous, and the tax credit will help junior mineral exploration companies raise capital, particularly to finance the early stage exploration that is vital to the creation of future mines. And we believe that this kind of incentive, this kind of measure, also recognizes the importance of the industry in the mix of Canada's resource economy, and that it's always good to be able to prove that a measure actually yields results. And in the case of this measure, we can do that. So I was pleased for the second year in a row to announce the extension of the 15% mineral exploration tax credit.
Est-ce que vous avez envisagé la possibilité?
Have you looked at the possibility of extending it by more than a year?
We do that every year. Let's just say that I think that's a great idea, and I will move it along with my colleagues, particularly in the finance department. And thank you for your encouragement.
Toujours en lien avec le prolongement du...
Still on the same topic, on extending the mineral exploration tax credit, could you explain, Mr. Minister, how that will mean for the businesses in the mining sector to be able to draw that capital investment to Canada?
Well, it applies to the juniors. They need this tax credit to give them the financial incentives they need to continue to do their work. And we believe that there's lots of evidence to come to the conclusion that it's an intelligent use of lost revenue for the government. You know, when you give these incentives to the private sector, it comes at some cost. So the government of Canada has to do an assessment of whether or not the cost is worth it. And we have done that twice in the life of this government, and our conclusion has been yes, that it is worth it. And we think that's demonstrable. So we also believe, and it gives me a chance to say something about the Canadian mining industry, which is really, as you were saying a couple of minutes ago about the forestry sector, is leading the world in sustainable practices. And in the many, many times I've had the pleasure of sitting down with the Mining Association of Canada, I've been so impressed with not only their commitment to sustainable mining practices, but also their partnership with Indigenous communities. And some of the best examples of these partnerships across the natural resource economy actually is within the mining sector. And I can be even more specific. It's in the uranium industry in northern Saskatchewan, where an entire Indigenous middle class has been built through the cooperation and the partnership between mining companies and Indigenous communities. So we are very, very supportive of the way in which the sector is adapting to the new realities, both in its relationships with Indigenous people and its commitment to sustainable practices. And we're very happy that this 15% tax credit is helping them. We think they deserve the help.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Lemieux. Ms. Stubbs, I assume you're next up.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mr. Minister, for taking the time to be here today. I just have a direct question to you. Do you believe that Canada produces the most environmentally and socially responsible oil and gas in the world?
I'm not in a position to know what metrics you're referring to say that it is the most or the best. I and the government support the industry, and we support the industry through policy, through decisions of major infrastructure development. We support it through a variety of programs incenting the private sector to move along to find more sustainable practices. We think that the oil and gas industry, primarily in Alberta, is essential to the health of Canada's economy and to the natural resource sector, which makes up, I'm just being handed a note. NRCan and Shell Canada worked together to develop a froth treatment technology that decreases oil sands energy and water use by 10%. This technology has become the industry standards.
Right.
So,
I used to work in the Department of Energy and the Oil Sands Business Unit in Alberta, and I do represent a big rural northern Alberta riding just south of the oil sands. And the rural communities in my riding are absolutely fueled by the energy development in heavy oil and oil sands and conventional oil and natural gas in that area. So, I appreciate you reading off some statistics, but I just want to take this opportunity to express to you why Albertans have a hard time believing your words. And, I think Calgarians spoke loud and clear about that in the recent by-elections. So I hope that we don't get into a debate about, about you telling me what Albertans think. But they have a hard time believing what you're saying because you have no problem passionately and directly and coherently talking about other sectors leading the world. And then you equivocate and can't answer the same directly about Canadian oil and gas. And on a number of measures ranging from the regulatory system to environmental performance, it is acknowledged by experts around the world that Canadian oil and gas is the most environmentally and socially responsible oil and gas in the world, and I think it would help energy workers right across the country who feel absolutely and utterly devastated and hopeless, as well as Albertans, but also Canadians in other energy producing provinces and communities that benefit from energy development, which in fact is every community across the country. It would help them if you, as a leader, as a representative of the federal government, as a prominent and influential voice on behalf of Canada, would say that unabashedly and without equivocation. If you want to know some other points, Alberta, of course, was the first jurisdiction in all of North America to regulate emissions, right? That was more than a year ago, or more than a decade ago. Alberta was the first jurisdiction, in fact, to implement a targeted $15 a ton carbon levy on major industrial emitters that included oil sands developers. That was more than a decade ago. Yet here, Albertans are today confused why, when we ask questions about concrete actions your government is taking in response to, for example, the drop in energy investment over the past couple of years, that is the equivalent of the elimination of the entire auto manufacturing sector and 75% of the aerospace sector, that your answer is, why aren't Albertans and energy workers grateful enough for these pipeline approvals, and why aren't they grateful enough for the 5.5 weeks extension of employment insurance while you're spending millions and billions of dollars in other sectors, in handouts directly to companies in other countries, and people are utterly devastated about their livelihoods and their futures. You've already pointed out how critical of an issue this is with regards to competitiveness and trade, particularly with the U.S. You've acknowledged both the trade imbalance there and the way that we are heavily dependent on.
If you're going to ask a question, you should do it soon because you're running out of time.
Thanks. I'll just make my own decision about how I advocate here at the committee. Yet it's the first time in Canadian history that a Prime Minister overruled and rejected the independent recommendation of a regulator on the only pipeline that would actually expand and diversify our export markets and allow energy projects to get to Asian markets. And you say you refuse to stand up for the building of pipelines which are federal jurisdiction, and that you can provide that much needed leadership and hope.
That's the time I'm going to have to stop you there, Ms. Stubbs. Thank you. It was consumed.
Well, can I just, through you, Mr. Chair, thank members of the committee. This is the best feature of our democracy. To be accountable, to take positive suggestions, to take them away. And I'm very grateful for the chance to exchange views with members of the committee. And thank you very much for your time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we do have, if you have time, we can have one more set of questions. Do we have 5 more minutes?
Sure.
Okay, Ms. Singh, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you to the rest of the committee members. I will look forward to my work here with each and every one of you, and thank you, Mr. Minister, for being here today. You talked about the importance of the need to transition, away from fossil fuels and the, and looking at innovation. Maybe you can talk to us about, a recently launched initiative that you had launched around generation energy, and how that initiative is going to help with, with experts in the energy sector in particular, that's going to, have conversations and provide some advice about what the future is going to look like. Can you talk to the committee about what that work will look like?
I can, and I appreciate the question for a variety of reasons, not the least of which the announcement was made in the Manitoba Hydro building in my hometown, and one of the most energy efficient buildings in the world. And the announcement was that we will host a major symposium on the future of Canada's energy mix in October. And we will challenge Canadians to take a blank sheet of paper and write on that paper what they think our energy mix should look like in a generation. And we will ask some of the finest minds around the world to join us in that inquiry, which hasn't been done, certainly in recent memory. And I think the time is just right for Canada to have a serious look at all of the sources of energy available to us, and maybe to find sources of energy that we've never dreamed of through research and development and the work with scientists and innovators and entrepreneurs. So it is a chance for the country to gather and to have a serious look at how we want our children, I guess in my case, my grandchildren, if they would ever come, to answer questions such as what's going to power the home, what's going to power the vehicle, what's going to the workplace going to look like, how are we going to produce and manufacture goods and services. So I welcome it as a fresh opportunity with no preconceived ideas of what will come of it. We will set the stage in our department, and we will invite the country and indeed parts of the world to come to Canada and have a very good look at what the future energy mix will look like and should look like. And thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cannings, we can use the remaining 2 or 3 minutes for you if you want.
Perfect. Thank you. I notice in the estimates there's mentions of a couple of decrease in funding for a couple of the eco-energy projects for biofuels, renewable power. Maybe they've gone to innovation like everything else. But my question is, where's the eco-energy retrofit program? This is a program that was so successful. The Conservatives give full credit for them bringing it in. It was so successful. It leveraged dollars at, I think, a 4 or 5 to 1 ratio. Homeowners putting in $4 for every dollar that the federal government put in. It did so much good work. People, the homeowners loved it because they saved money on their energy bills. The government loved it because it produced a great amount of energy savings and, you know, getting those greenhouse gases down. And the construction industry loved it. They noticed it when that program was cut. And it would be the simplest thing. And I know it's gone off to the provinces and the Pan-Canadian framework, but I'm just mystified why the federal government didn't keep it and use it as a real flagship program.
No. We'll take good ideas from wherever they may come, even from the official opposition, especially from the official opposition. You know, we might take credit for it later, but you know the way that works. Budget 2017 invests a further $181.8 million over 8 years to reduce energy use and emissions in the building sector through building codes, technology, innovation, labeling, and standards. As always, colleague, I'm very open to having a conversation with you about the value proposition, the investment choices that you know we have to make, and to hear what I'm sure would be very good arguments that this is something that should be looked at carefully.
I have to stop there. Thank you, Mr. Koenig. Minister, thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule. We know you're very busy, particularly these days, so we're all very grateful.
Thank you.
So I will suspend for just 2 minutes, and then we'll resume. What, 3? Just over 45 minutes for the balance of the meeting, and I apologize to our witnesses. Before we get to you, we have some matters we have to deal with quickly. Mr. Harvey, perhaps I'll just turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, recently we had a submission that was sent around by the clerk of the committee about proposed travel to Washington on behalf of the Natural Resources Committee. There's been several committees and groups of parliamentarians have been traveling to speak with U.S. decision makers on Canada-U.S. policy. I think I agree with the analyst's proposal and the relevant significance of us traveling as a committee to the United States. And I think, you know, if we today, however, is the deadline, and I think if we work collaboratively over the coming months, we could come up with a travel plan and an itinerary that suits the needs of committee members and reflects the importance of Canada-U.S. trade relations, especially as it pertains to our softwood lumber industry and the energy sector. So I feel it's a great opportunity for us to collectively advocate on behalf of Canada's natural resource sector and represent our Canadian interests in the United States, and I welcome open comments, but I think we should proceed with that study trip.
Thank you. Just so we understand, we were going to deal with this on Tuesday, but because of the evacuation, because of the gas leak, we weren't able to deal because the meeting was canceled. So does anybody have any comments or questions with respect to what Mr. Harvey is proposing? Mr. Barlow?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate what Mr. Harvey's proposal is, and I think certainly there is some merit for us to have those discussions, but we will not support going down as a committee. When we go down as a committee, we cannot have when we travel abroad, we as opposition, we cannot be questioning or opposing government policy. When we want to go down and talk about some of the issues that we will be supportive, we can't do that as a committee, certainly meeting other officials, so we will not be in support of Mr. Harvey's proposal.
Mr. Lemieux and then Mr. McKay.
Monsieur le Président, j'aime
Mr. Chair, I very much like the idea of perhaps being able to go to Washington, especially in the current context with the negotiations with the U.S. As part of the soft lumber agreements or negotiations. It would be very important, especially for the people in my riding, if we went to Washington to really tell them about our visions and what we are asking for. So I support this proposal fully.
Thank you, Mr. McKay.
I can't think of anything more important than literally members of Parliament and indeed senators flooding the United States at this point in time, particularly if we have any contacts with congressmen and senators. This is a very sensitive time. in cross-border relationships. This committee is seized with two of the most sensitive files, namely the, or if you will, the energy file and the softwood lumber file. And the more that this committee goes down, this committee and others go down, the more American congressmen and senators are aware of the implications of any actions that they might take. So if there is, I would, even though I'm not on this committee, I would say this is probably one of the one or two or three top committees to be traveling to the United States at this particular time. And yes, when we cross the border, we are Team Canada. That's just the way it is. I would expect when I was sitting over there, I expected to be Team Canada. When I cross the border back again, we can don our partisan hats and take positions, whatever positions the parties might be. It is critical, I would say, to use every contact that we can possibly use. Every time there's a tweet, we twitch, and it has enormous implications. So I think that this is core responsibility of members of Parliament of all parties, that they go across, that they that they take the responsibility and take it seriously.
Thank you.
Well, I would agree with Mr. Barlow in the sense that, you know, were I to go to Washington, I would like to be able to bring up issues and question officials and politicians down there about matters that may be not what the government wants to hear. It almost certainly may not be what the Conservative members would want to hear. But you know, I think it is, I would agree, Mr. McKay, that it's a very good idea that we go to Washington. It's just a matter of whether we go on our own or with the committee. I've never, you know, I'm new at this. I haven't been involved in foreign committee travel, so I don't know the restrictions, you know, and how that would play out. I would certainly learn a lot myself if the committee did travel there. But is that the best way for me to go to Washington? I don't know. So I have some reservations there.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Mr. Barlow, and then Mr. Harvey.
Well, I have a lot of respect for Mr. McKay, and I appreciate that. We have our position on this, and I don't know if we need to keep debating it, but I think we have issues in Canada that we need to resolve first when it comes to our energy sector. I think that's where our focus should be. If we want to go down to the United States on our points, we have that opportunity to do so and meet with stakeholders and have that discussion. And I think that's open to all of us. If we want to do that, I don't think we need to do it as a committee.
Mr. Harvey.
Well, just before we close this conversation, because I know that we're going to close this conversation, and I think the outcome of it is inevitable, but I would like to remind committee members, you know, that I have the utmost respect for everybody in this committee, but that 30% of the U.S.'s uranium comes from Canada, 30% of the U.S.'s softwood lumber comes from Canada, 20% of their oil, 10% of their natural gas. So there are significant relevant interests that Canada has with the United States that affect all of us, regardless of our feelings on the public policy that surrounds the governing of them within this country. And there are relevant impacts to the entire Canadian industry, regardless of which side you sit on.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to call it to a vote now. So all in favor of Mr. Harvey's proposal, please raise your hand. All opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll get back to our witnesses' apologies and our gratitude for being patient. We are joined by Sherry Crosby, continue to be with Christine Tremblay and Philip Jennings, so thank you for being here. If you have any opening comments, you're of course free to make them, or if not, we can open the floor to questions.
Minister Chair, we can go directly with the question. We are pleased to answer them.
Okay, all right. In that case, thank you, Mr. McKay. I believe you may have some questions.
Yeah, I thought it was a strange concept that when we're having a meeting on estimates, we should ask questions about estimates. I know that's very old-fashioned of me, but the minister made an interesting statement, and he's talked about biggest decrease is forecasted to be $335 million drop in the statutory Atlantic offshore amount. So you're going from well, the expenditures in 2015-16 were $347 million. Main estimates was in 2016-17 are $743 million, and then you bump down to $408 million. That's a big drop. There wasn't actually much explanation as to the significance of that, and what I don't understand is the significance to your budget to this. It looks to me like it's a flow-through. Am I correct about that? So if it's a flow-through, why does the department disclose it in this fashion? Why is it part of expenditures by program or purpose? Should it not be in some other category, money in, money out, and therefore not impacting on your actual budget?
Maybe I can answer why it's just flow through our department. Really, we working with the Atlantic Offshore Board, and it's the transfer that we're doing to the province year after year to recognize the royalty that we have to go to the board. So, and the variation in the number is mainly due to the resource price, the production level, operation cost. And so technically, if you want to know sur le point de vue comptable, qu'est-ce que ça veut?
From the accounting perspective, what it means, I'll leave it to Ms. Crosby to respond, but I can give you an idea of what will happen.
Why does this money just not go into finance and not be part of your budget?
Okay, that's a more complicated question, I would say. But I first of all, I'll give you a fancy accounting answer by saying, not very fancily, this mains estimate exercise is meant to be completely transparent in terms of making reference to all dollars that come in and out, most of which we spend. But as you pointed out, the statutory is a flow through. But this document is meant to be transparent in terms of what money is coming in and what money is going out. The fact is that this committee, in fact, doesn't vote on that either. So it can be a bit confusing, even though it's in the main estimates. You're going to be voting on our operating and our capital and on our transfer payments, but not on the statutories, of course.
Yeah, it was raised in the speech, though, and it's your top line up here.
Yeah.
But we're not going to talk about it. Okay.
Well, we can certainly talk about it.
It just strikes me as strange. Like, like if it doesn't actually affect your budget, why is it here? Why isn't it? If it's money in, money out, why not? Why shouldn't it be going into the department or the finance department's revenues?
One of the roles that we do play at NRCan is we manage the accords related to these statutory obligations. And in managing them, we do things like forecasting and monitoring. So we're looking at the price of oil, we're looking at the fluctuations of production and making predictions. And so it's not simply a flow through. We also play a role in managing and monitoring the trends and creating reports and so on. I'd be happy to speak more about that if you wish.
Right. It's exceedingly tedious. I agree. Okay. Second question has to do with contributions in support of transportation and alternative fuels. So $180,000 in 2015-16 with the expenditures. Then it drops to zero in 2016-17, and then it bumps up to $10.9 million. I'm not quite sure if you could sort of give me an explanation of that variation. That would be at least of interest to me. It may not be of great interest to the committee, but to me it's interesting.
That is tab 19.
Right in the middle of contributions.
so I can perhaps start us off, and then you can stop me if I get too much into the weeds. On this particular thing, which is transportation and alternative fuels, the budget 2016 committed a total of $62.5 million to support things like electric vehicle, alternative fuel infrastructure, and so forth. This year, 10.9 million, which is what you have alluded to, of 16.4 million in total, will be invested in things like 80 new charging units for electrical vehicles, as well as 9 natural gas and 3 hydrogen fueling stations along along several key transportation corridors.
Okay, so that's brand new then?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's why there's no history in
Exactly.
in the main estimates and the previous expenditures. Okay, I get it. Thank you, Chair.
To the officials for being here today. In the Departmental Plan for Natural Resources Canada, under the investment in natural resource sectors, you have stated that your department's target is for a 5-year average growth of the energy sector's capital expenditures, that it will be equal to or greater than the past 5-year average. Under the energy sector capital expenditures, your numbers show that in year 2013 and 2014, the capital expenditure for the energy sector was 16.6%. In 2015, 2016, the capital expenditure was negative 1% for the energy sector. What does your department attribute to the downturn in the capital expenditures in the energy sector?
Take a try.
I will say that, this year with the budget, the department got a lot of money in the energy sector to help the sector to go cleaner, to develop and support the industry.
That's not the question I'm asking, though. I'm sorry. That's not the question I'm asking. What does your department attribute to the downturn in the capital expenditures in the energy sector?
Maybe I can ask a question. Are you referring to something you're specifically seeing in the main estimates?
Absolutely. Under the energy sector capital expenditures, your numbers show that in the year 2013 and 2014, the capital expenditure for the energy sector was 16.6%. In 2015 and 2016, the capital expenditures was negative 1% for the energy sector. All right, how about we do this? How about we leave that with you and you can come back to us with that? Is that right?
Yeah, my apologies.
Perfect. Have you studied the impact a carbon tax would have on the competitiveness of Canada's energy and mining sector and the impact it would have on future capital expenditures?
Yes, for sure. We are very concerned about the impact of the carbon pricing.
Okay, you've studied it?
And it's why we're doing a study with the finance department, and it's why also we're conducting a consultation with the industry. It's something that we're doing right now.
But with all due respect.
With great respect, Ms. Doherty, these are officials. They're here to answer questions with respect to the main estimates. If the question is a good question, it's a relevant question, but it's a relevant question to the minister. It's not a relevant question to officials.
Mr. Chair, it's a relevant question to the department. That's what they're here for. And with all due respect to my colleague across the way, the question, the reason why we asked that is you've already announced a carbon tax, and now you are studying it. Shouldn't that have been before you announced, before the carbon tax was announced?
We're dealing with facts here, on Mr. McKay's point. I think they've already answered the question that you asked. You're delving into.
How about this, Mr. Chair? I'll save everyone we'll ask that the department come back with that at a later date.
No, it's fine.
Is the government studying the impact a potential American border adjustment tax would have on the Canadian energy sector?
Mr. Chair, it's an hypothetical question. I think the government and the minister is really engaged with his counterpart, with the U.S. He's been there even last week, and at this point, I'm not going to elaborate more.
Thank you.
Do I still have time? Great. Currently, Canada oil and gas companies do not have a way to get its products to Tidewater. The main estimates show that $60,190,597 have been allotted to market access and diversification. Can you explain what the funds are used for and what impact did the decision not to proceed with Northern Gateway have on market access and diversification?
Mr. Chair, the Government of Canada made the commitment to only approve projects that are in the public interest. The Northern Gateway project was determined not to be in the public interest because it will have brought crude oil tanker through the Douglas Channel.
With all due respect, again, I'm asking what the funds are used for, the $60,190,597.
We're going to take the question and come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is your time? In the Departmental Plan for Natural Resources Canada, under investment in natural resource sectors, you have stated your department's target for a 5-year average growth rate of the capital expenditures for minerals and metals will be equal to or greater than the past 5-year average. Under the minerals and metals sector, capital expenditures, your numbers show that in year 2013 and 2014, the capital expenditures for minerals and metals was 16.1%. In 2016, the capital expenditures was negative 2.6% for minerals and metals sector. What does your department attribute the downturn in capital expenditures in the minerals and metals sector?
Mr. Chair, at the same time of question, we're gonna have to come back.
On capital.
Thank you.
Yeah, on capital. I'm sorry.
Thank you. You've got about 8 seconds. I don't think you can accomplish much in that time, Mr. Doherty. Mr. Cannings?
Thanks again for being here. I just wanted to try to get a couple of details on the expenditures, and some of them reflect things in the estimates, but Minister Carr mentioned the almost $40 million that were being spent, not this year, but next year, for building large buildings with wood. I'm just wondering if any of you here would have the details on how that would be spent, how that's carved up in terms of research versus actual. I just want to find out how much of that is being spent that would benefit directly the Canadian lumber industry, the forest industry. Is there any breakdown there?
I don't have a specific breakdown in percentage, but I can tell you that the full amount has to go to the forest sector, and the objective is the program is really to offset the fact that, we're going to have early user of wood, and we want to make sure that it's going to be an incentive to the people to use wood in the building.
Okay, thanks. And you mentioned the electric vehicle charging stations. And that's, I think that's something that you mentioned. There was $10.9 million in this year's estimates and part of that was going to charging stations, some going to natural gas, some going to hydrogen. this, you said there was it 80 charging stations? It just seems like a lot of money for so few charging stations, because they cost, in generous terms, about $100,000 a piece. I'm just wondering how that breakdown works there.
Well, you're absolutely right. That's what is what we dedicated the 10.9 to. Among other things, I think the list that I was mentioning was meant to be illustrative. So it did establish 80 new charging units for electrical vehicles, but there were also additional units related to natural gas, hydrogen, and so forth.
Right.
I don't have at my disposal a breakdown completely of the entire 10.9, but we'd be happy to come back with that.
Well, again, anything to increase that, you know, because we need something to drive that shift for electrification of our transportation.
In fact, the number is that we had 1,000 electric charging stations, we had 80 fast charging stations, we have 9 natural gas and 3 hydrogen refueling stations. And aside from that, we also gave support to different companies. Add Energy, for example, in Quebec, received money to deploy, you know, kind of a charging station across, you know, Quebec and Ontario.
But those were not the fast charging; those are just
normal one.
The medium charging. Okay. I'm just wondering whether any of you could answer in general terms about sticking with electrification, about moving to you know, we always hear about these, we need a smarter electrical grid to handle this shift to electrification of all sectors. And I'm just wondering how much expenditures are going towards that, and what's the department's priorities there?
Give me a second.
Maybe to get us started, and well, I can underline that as was announced recently, there is a Pan-Canadian framework, of course, being slowly implemented beginning this year, but ramping up over the coming years. It's really a blueprint for reducing emissions and spurring innovation, adapting to climate change, and so forth. The minister mentioned that NRCan is active in about 30 of the overall 50 projects that we are imagining, and in those 30, you will see investing in clean electricity. You'll see bringing new renewables to the forefront, supporting smart grid technologies, reducing diesel in northern and remote communities, north and south of 60, and so forth. So I think you're going to want to keep your eye on the Pan-Canadian framework for sure, and Budget 2017 in particular put budgets to things like smart grids, electric vehicle infrastructure, as you mentioned, because we have to do more of that. Minister mentioned building new codes and so forth for new buildings and building tall buildings and so forth. So many, many initiatives announced in 2017 that really builds on what was put in place in 2016 and moving forward.
Okay. Okay, just getting back to in the estimates on the eco-energy renewable for renewable power, that has dropped. You know, I'm hoping that's gone somewhere else where it'll still be put to good use rather than.
It's a good question. Okay, so the reduction is in line with the program in the original spending profile, and it's in, you know, the first 10 years contribution agreement. So the Eco-Energy for Renewable Power program was launched in 2007 to encourage more renewable project power, and almost 1.4 billion has been committed under the program to support 104 projects. Together, the project represents more than 4,550 megawatts of renewable power capacity annually. That surpassed davantage of the objective that we had. It supports a large number of projects including some project in Alberta. For example, the Blue Trail Wind Farm. And it's encouraged, a project in the wind sector, in the biomass sector, hydro, and solar. And each province, had some project, that has been supported by that program. The last contribution agreement expired, in 2020-21. And the government wanted to make sure that this good, if support and this progress, will be support in the future. So in the Pan-Canadian framework, we had $100 million to support the next generation of smart grid, storage, and clean electricity technology. We got also $200 million to support the deployment of emerging renewable energy technology, and $220 million to reduce the dependency of the diesel for some communities.
Thank you. I have to stop there. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Ng in a second. That'll take us to the end of round one, which I think is all the time we're going to have. I assume everybody's comfortable with that, because we do have to vote on the estimates, and then we do have some other committee business we have to deal with briefly before 5:30. So everybody's in agreement with that?
So they're getting second round?
No, we're going to finish round one. Ms. Ng.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the officials for being here today with us. Can you talk to us about, in this year's estimates, there's an increase of $145.5 million for clean growth and for and an increase to the climate change envelope. Could you talk to us about, about the breakdown of these funds and in concrete terms how the government's expected to use these allocated funds?
The increase is due to an additional spending in priority area to deliver the Pan-Canadian framework. This funding increase also reflects the importance that the RNCAN, is helping the government to meet its mission innovation commitment to double the funding to the R&D by 2020. Almost $100 million of this $145.5 million increase is devoted to advancing clean energy research, development and demonstration project through the Energy Innovation and Oil and Gas Clean Technology Program. And the last budget tap into the power of clean technology to create jobs, drive innovation, ensure that the environment and the economy goes hand in hand. So we have a full suite of measures that will support this type of initiative.
Great, thank you. Also, in this year's estimates, there's an increase of $14.3 million for the Federal Infrastructure Initiative for contaminated sites and investments in labs and facility infrastructure modernization. Can you talk to us about how those funds will be used?
Thank you for the question. I think it's a very key question. The federal facilities are very, very important. That I'm coming from, a provincial government, and it's something that very impressed me when I arrived to see the federal government has a very good, research facility. So we receive $89.3 million in 2014. We got $90.7 million in 2016 from major repair and upgrading our federal laboratory. So we invest all across the country. In the Pacific and North facility, we invest replacement of air handling unit, electric control, furnace, fuel oil system. We also invest in the prairie facilities, so we adjust and modernize the heating, induction terminal unit, air handling system, laboratory, woods, and exhaust fan. We also invest in Ontario, address aging stormwater system, improvement to site access for safety and replacement of exterior building material that are beyond its life cycle. And we also invest in the Eastern Canada facilities modernization. We replace the roof, the lighting, the electrical system. All this to make sure that we are able to conduct the science in a proper way and make sure that our scientists have the best condition as possible.
Thank you. Do I still? Okay. Thank you for that. I also want to ask about an increase of $2.7 million for the interim measures as part of the federal environment assessment process in the estimates. So maybe you could talk to us about what the status of the federal review is on the Canadian EA process and the progress that's been achieved to date, and again, how will these funds be allocated?
Thank you for this very important question. I think that we expecting the report from the NEB panel May 15. It's going to be a very big piece, for the modernization of the organization, but also to see how we're going to be able to make, the review more effective. It's something that has been raised today in the discussion, that the investor wants predictability, wants effective process, and we have also to make sure that we have public confidence so we can bring, a resource to market. So for the review process, we already received the CIA panel report. We're expecting to receive the NEB one in fact 2 weeks, and we already received, the recommendation for the Fishery Act and the Navigable Act also. So with this 4 reviews together, the government will be able to make a decision how it can improve the process to make it more efficient and more and to increase the trust of the Canadian in the system.
One more time? One more? 1 more minute. Okay, I'll go fast. I'll ask about the last increase here, and that's the $3.2 million for the marine conservation targets. So on that, can you talk to us about the status of marine conservation efforts in Canada and how how these funds will be targeted and used, please?
I think the role of the RNCAN for the marine conservation target is really to bring science that will help the government to make the best choice in the different area that it can be targeted, for conservation. So the government of Canada is on track to meet, the 2017 target of 5% protection of Canada marine and coastal water. And the money that we receive, support, as I mentioned, our commitment to bring the science in the decision. Our scientists are working with the Fishery and Ocean One, with Park Canada, to determine the location of the protect area. So all this work will help to build, for the future and determine, what will be the next area that can be protected by the government.
Thank you. We're going to have to stop there because we have some other matters we have to deal with. So thank you to our witnesses for joining us this afternoon. And again, thank you for your patience while we dealt with matters before we got going.
Thank you, Minister Chair.
So if we now need to vote on the estimates, we can do it individually, or we can agree. If we have unanimous consent, we can do it collectively. Do we have unanimous consent to vote on them collectively? Yes? Yes? Okay, all right, perfect. All right, so that being the case, read into the record, shall vote 1 under the Atomic Energy of Canada, vote 1 under Canada Nuclear Safety Commission, votes 1, 5, and 10 under Natural Resources, vote 1 under Natural Energy Board, vote 1 under Northern Pipeline Agency carry. All in favor?
On division?
Yeah? Geez, we're doing so well then. Okay, opposed? Abstentions? Okay, all right. Carried. Now, this is the motion to report on the main estimates to the House. Shall the chair report vote 1 under the Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, vote 1 under Canada Nuclear Safety Commission, votes 1, 5, and 10 under Natural Resources, vote 1 under National Energy Board, and vote 1 under Northern Pipeline Agency, less the amounts granted it interim supplied to the House. I thought so. Thank you for good. Let's not dive into that too deeply, okay? You do. All right. Is there anybody opposed to that? No. So all in favor, that one is unanimous. Thank you. We have some scheduling issues we can deal with very quickly if we go on camera for about 3 minutes. Do we have time to do that? Yeah, okay. So we're going to suspend for 30 seconds while we go on camera.